In 20 minutes, Terence Donovan and Brian Brown star in tonight's film The Money Movers, in which a security company's supposedly impenetrable vault is the target of a daring robbery. Now on BBC1 at just after 14 minutes past 11, the news and sport with Michael Burke.
More than 125,000 people are now known to have died in the Bangladesh cyclone. Millions of survivors face famine and disease. And the Queen leads the nation in remembering the dead of the Gulf War. Good evening. It's been a day of mourning in Bangladesh, where the official death toll from Tuesday's cyclone is now put at more than 125,000. It's still rising. Thousands more bodies are being found as the floodwaters recede and the rescuers reach the worst-hit areas. Places like Shundip Island in the Bay of Bengal. Jeremy Bowen's report from there may upset you.
Human bodies and the carcasses of dead animals rot in the paddy fields on Shundip Island. They lie where they were left by the floodwater when it receded. Wrecked ships clogged the shallow strait that separates Shundip from the mainland. Floods made it impossible to reach the island until today. We travelled on the first helicopter to land on Shundip since the disaster. 350,000 people lived here. The army estimates 30 to 50,000 of them were killed. The village of Ra'amathpur took the full force of the storm. About 1,000 people who crowded into the cyclone shelter were saved. It was full by the time Abdul Batan arrived with his family. They were turned away. They returned to their home, he said, so they could die together. His wife and children were killed. He doesn't understand how he survived. Misery is everywhere in Ra'amathpur. Banu Rahman's babies, her husband, mother and father were swept away. This child's mother had just been buried. Her father found her body this morning. Almost all the village's food was destroyed by the cyclone. Most of the people have hardly eaten since Monday, and there's no fresh water.
Disease is now the biggest problem for the people on this island. About 40% of the survivors already have dysentery. Local health workers expect an epidemic of typhoid.
A pitifully small amount of aid has reached Shundip and dozens of places like it in this area. The army has 2 helicopters to supply 5 million people. The general in charge of relief said he was ashamed to show his face in public. He's doing his best, but they need help from abroad, and it hasn't arrived. The stench of rotting corpses hangs over the paddy fields on Shundip. The crops have been poisoned. They were 2 weeks away from the security of the harvest. Now the people left face disease and starvation. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, on Shundip Island, Bangladesh.
Britain's Bangladeshi community has handed in a petition at 10 Downing Street calling for more aid to be sent to the disaster area. So far, the government has promised help worth £4.5 million.
Bangladeshi businessmen met in London's East End today to discuss urgent ways of raising extra money for the cyclone victims. At the meeting, the Bangladeshi finance minister.
British people traditionally have been sympathetic to the downtrodden and all the people in distress. They could help us if they could give us financial support. They are already giving the moral support. We need financial support.
And in Downing Street, Bangladeshis unhappy with the British response so far. They're calling for at least £50 million of British aid.
We are asking that as part of a package of demands that we are making to the Saudi government, to the Kuwaiti government and the United Nations.
In presenting the petition, they were seeking the increased British help as part of a long-term worldwide investment strategy for Bangladesh. The Foreign Office points out it's continually assessing the situation.
On the border between Turkey and Iraq, the attempts to persuade Kurdish refugees to return home are continuing. But where Iraqi soldiers are still around, the people remain suspicious.
Nearly 250,000 people need to come home from the mountains to the town of Dohuk. It's a ghostly place, and for over a month the only inhabitants have been Iraqi soldiers. A good number are still here, in numerous barracks and observation posts. This is the seat of an Iraqi governorate, and there must be reluctance to vacate it to Allied troops. They are pushing nearer, the mountain ranges buzzing to the sound of American Black Hawks and the Royal Marine Air Squadron, in control of the air and hinting heavily to Iraqis still below that they should be moving out south. Iraqis we spoke to on the road to Dohuk sounded keen to leave.
We will leave this place tomorrow or another day, but in a short time we will leave.
And they were packing up, much to the relief of the few families who crept back to a nearby village. They were apprehensive and hungry. There are no markets, no shops, they have no transport, and they're waiting for the Allies to arrive. Kate Adey, BBC News, Northern Iraq.
Here, the Queen joined political and religious leaders for a service in memory of those who were killed in the Gulf War. Relatives of the dead praised the service at Glasgow Cathedral for being low-key. Some people had feared the occasion would be triumphalist.
The service was due to begin at midday, but the locomotive of the Queen's train bringing her from the north of England broke down, and Her Majesty was greeted by the Prime Minister inside the cathedral 17 minutes later than had been planned. The Queen and Prince Philip, the Prime Minister and opposition leaders took part in the service of remembrance for the 43 British servicemen who were killed and for the dead of every nation involved in the Gulf War. So too did Mrs. Margaret Thatcher, who was Prime Minister when the Gulf crisis began. Flight Lieutenant John Peters, the Tornado pilot who was captured and shown along with other pilots and navigators on Iraqi television, read the second lesson.
It's easy for critics to scoff at the role played by the United Nations. But isn't it better, isn't it truer to the demands of faith to keep alive the hope that despite all the ambiguities, our world can sometimes find ways of uniting around a cause which it believes to be right?
Glaswegian children of three faiths, Christian, Jew and Muslim, gathered around the moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland to pray.
Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore.
Love your enemies, and you will be sons of the Most High. It is thee we serve, and to thee we call for help.
The chairman of British Rail later apologised to the Queen and the rest of the congregation for the delay caused by the train breakdown. Sir Bob Reid said the locomotive had a faulty fuel pump. The Royal Party returned to London tonight by air. The Labour Party say that putting off the date of the general election wouldn't help the Conservatives. They say their latest analysis of Thursday's local elections shows they did particularly well in Tory strongholds in the south and east hit hard by the recession. They say reducing inflation and interest rates will not make any difference.
After the local election battle, a brief political truce at the Gulf War Remembrance Service. But from John Major, stung by Thursday's humiliating electoral setback, an unguarded comment caused opposition glee. School pupils from Hamilton say he confided he couldn't say he was pleased to be Prime Minister, he'd have preferred to stay Chancellor. Labour believe they're now ready to help Mr Major move out of Downing Street altogether, and that delaying an election won't help the Tories recover. They claim their analysis of local election success in areas like Nottingham, Luton, Southampton and Dover suggests they did best in traditional Tory strongholds worst hit by rising unemployment, which is set to get worse.
It's arrogant and complacent of Tory ministers, the Prime Minister Chris Patten, to assume that because inflation may come down a point or two, that these people are going to forgive and forget all the damage the Tories have done to them and their families. They won't.
But Tory Central Office has poured scorn on Labour's claims as highly fanciful, pointing out that Labour failed to make gains in key marginal areas. Ministers believe Labour's performance was relatively modest, leaving the government a springboard for recovery by the autumn or next spring. But Paddy Ashdown has found both main parties agree on one thing. They won't concede electoral reform to win Liberal Democrat support if there's a hung parliament.
Hundreds of thousands of Armenians have attended the funerals in the state capital Yerevan of their countrymen killed in ethnic fighting. They were among at least 36 people reported dead after clashes with the rival Soviet Republic of Azerbaijan near the disputed enclave in Nagorno-Karabakh.
It's been a day of official mourning in Armenia. Some 200,000 people have taken to the streets, grieving for the latest victims of what is a long and bloody feud with the neighboring Republic of Azerbaijan. The Armenians claim at least 36 of their countrymen were massacred in two villages which are close to the disputed enclave of Nagorno-Karabakh. Some of those who died were buried today, these mourners claiming the victims were killed by Azerbaijani and Soviet troops who they say combined forces in a premeditated attack on the villages. The deaths have outraged this fiercely nationalist people. They tied black ribbons to the Armenian flag in what was a show of defiance against the Kremlin as well as a funeral service. The authorities in Azerbaijan and in Moscow are expressing few regrets. They blame gangs of Armenian gunmen who they say provoked the violence. But President Gorbachev is trying to ease the tension. He's held separate talks with the leaders of both Armenia and Azerbaijan, so far with little success, and the spiral of killing seems to be continuing along the border between these two embattled republics. Ben Brown, BBC News, Moscow.
The boyfriend of the Oxford student Rachel McLean has appeared in court charged with her murder. John Tanner, who's 22, was arrested in Nottingham on Thursday. He made a 3-minute appearance in Oxford Magistrates' Court where he spoke only briefly to confirm his age and address. His solicitor made no application for bail. John Tanner was remanded in custody until May the 9th, but doesn't have to appear in court again personally until May the 30th. There's concern for the future of 500 Beagles at a kennels near Malvern. The kennels, which breed dogs for laboratory experiments, is said to be in financial difficulties. Last year it was fined after some of its dogs died while being taken to Sweden.
Animal rights campaigners who gathered outside the kennels today had mixed feelings. They'd welcome the closure of one of the country's biggest suppliers of dogs for laboratory experiments. But they worry about what would become of the hundreds of beagles currently housed there. Last year, these dogs bred at the kennels were rescued after 79 others suffocated while in transit to Sweden. The firm was later fined £11,000. Today, in a brief statement, the company confirmed that it was having financial difficulties, but said enough money was available to look after the dogs. After carrying out an inspection of the premises today, the RSPCA say they're satisfied the dogs are being properly fed, but they remain concerned about the Beagles' future should the company go under.
The RSPCA has made a commitment to the company that we will help in any way we can to safeguard the welfare of the dogs. Now that may well mean paying perhaps for them to be fed and to be kept here for a while we make alternative arrangements, because clearly we want to take these dogs away from here if we can and to provide loving new homes for them across Britain.
But until the future of the company becomes clear, the RSPCA say they can't accept any offers of new homes for the Beagles.
Now, with news of today's sport, here's David Davis.
Arsenal have moved to the brink of their second championship in 3 years, despite only drawing at struggling Sunderland. Their nearest challengers, Liverpool, lost at Chelsea. A late save by the England goalkeeper David Seaman ensured Arsenal a precious point at Roker Park. 2 goals from Chelsea's Kerry Dixon helped defeat Liverpool, last season's champions, at Stamford Bridge. And so Arsenal now lead the First Division table by 4 points with 2 games to play. Crystal Palace and Leeds won today. United beat City in the Manchester derby. At the bottom, the draw with Arsenal put Sunderland level on points and goal difference with Luton, who lost narrowly at Everton. 2 goals from David Hurst helped Sheffield Wednesday to a crucial victory over Millwall in the battle for promotion from the Second Division. With West Ham and Oldham already up, Wednesday seems certain to join them, and Notts County lead the group of 4 clubs likeliest to contest the playoffs for another promotion place. In Scotland, Aberdeen and Rangers are now level on points at the top of the Premier Division. Rangers lost while Aberdeen won today, and the 2 meet at Ibrox to settle the championship next Saturday. English soccer will see a new name in the 4th Division next season. Barnet have won promotion from non-league soccer. Today's opponents, Fisher from London's Docklands, were twice in front, but needing only a draw, Barnet equalised, then took the lead through Gary Bull, cousin of the England World Cup player. For Barnet's chairman and manager, it was a day to relish, and their 4-2 win was clinched by a Bull penalty 2 minutes from the end. Another crowd of above 4,000 would be very welcome in the 4th Division next season. And it was cup final day for rugby union in both England and Wales. At Cardiff, Llanelli beat Pontypool by 24 points to 9, while at Twickenham, Harlequins overcame Northampton, but only after extra time.
A game that only came to life in the second half. Harlequins, with 11 internationals to Northampton's 2, were 6-3 down on penalties, but then their one uncapped forward, Langhorne, found his way through the muddle for a try obscured to all but those behind the Northampton line. The lead, though, brought complacency, and suddenly Northampton emerged as potential match winners.
And here's the breakdown with Packman on the chase, depends on the bounce. Packman, can he control it? It's over the line, it's Moss following through.
The try wasn't converted, but Steele's penalty 5 minutes later was. Northampton 13-9 ahead, 14 minutes to go, and an upset widely anticipated. Yet, 6 minutes from the end, the England captain Carling fed Harriman for the try that levelled the scores at 13-all. It took the game into extra time, and from then on there was just one team in it.
Pears, short, sharp pass, the Halliday try.
5 minutes later, as Northampton's resistance weakened, Harlequins ran in their 4th try. Their superior stamina and experience finally had its way. Glenister the scorer, 25-13 the final score, with captain Peter Winterbottom the first to celebrate Harlequins' second cup win in 4 years.
At Cardiff, Llanelli's bid for a 7th Welsh Cup title began well when Emyr Lewis scored the game's opening try after a quarter of an hour. But Pontypool are showing signs that they're re-emerging as a power in Welsh rugby, and Vince Davids's deserved try just before half-time briefly threatened an upset. Llanelli, though, often save their best cup performances for Pontypool. They've won the last 5 cup ties between the two clubs, and 2 quick tries after half-time put them in control. The international winger Ian Evans back to full fitness, scoring the first. Pontypool's attempts to force their way back into the game were brave but fruitless, and Llanelli confirmed their superiority thanks to another breathtaking try.
The fullback gets clear, now needs to attack. Brilliant play from Jones, and the fullback will score a magnificent try.
Llanelli, the Welsh knockout champions again by 24 points to 9.
Yorkshire's cricketers have boosted their chances of reaching the Benson and Hedges Cup quarter-finals after an astonishing 189-run win over Hampshire. The former England bowler Arnie Sidebottom took 4 for 19 as Hampshire were bowled out for just 50. At the World Snooker Championships, Jimmy White is through to the final after beating Steve James 16-9. He'll now play John Parrott, who overcame the former champion Steve Davis 16-10. And Ian Stark leads the badminton 3-day event competition after a faultless display on Murphy himself in the cross-country section. Mystico, ridden by Michael Roberts, won the second classic of the flat racing season, the 2,000 guineas at Newmarket. The favourite, Marju, was never in contention and finished the race lame, leaving Mystico and Lysias to fight out the finish, described by Peter Bromley.
But Mystico is the overall leader on the stand side, and in the depth, Mystico and Michael Roberts have the lead from Lysias. They're coming to the rising ground. Can he hold on? Lysias is catching Mystico as they meet the rising ground. It's a 2-horse race. Mystico on the stand side, Lysias on the far side. Mystico by a nose. Mystico hangs on. Mystico wins it. Lysias is second.
And Mystico the winner at 13-2, Lysias second at 16-1, with Ganges third also at 16-1.
The comedian Bernie Winters has died in a London hospital. He was 58 and had been suffering from cancer for more than a year. He'll be best remembered for his comedy partnership with his brother Mike. They starred in the Royal Variety shows and later had their own television series. Bernie's the one on the left.
Nice idea, that. Yeah, I mean, wouldn't it be nice if we could sing a medley of our hit songs? We wouldn't be here very long, would we? No, we wouldn't, no.
It's amazing. I mean, if we sang Step Inside and Downtown, automatically everybody would think of Cilla Black and Petula Clark.
Yes, but we look nothing like Cilla Black and Petula Clark, you know what I mean? I mean, in the first place, they're much prettier than us. And come to think of it, they're much prettier than us in the second place. No.
After the brothers split up in the 80s, Bernie created a new act with his dog Schnorbitz. Only last year, Bernie talked on television about his fight against cancer. Bernie Winters, who died today. And we've just received a report that President Bush has been taken to hospital after suffering shortness of breath while jogging at Camp David. He was taken to the Bethesda Naval Hospital. His condition is said to be safe and stable, but he'll need further examination. And that's it from the newsroom. Good night.
A very good evening to you. It's been a pretty cold day in many parts of the country. The temperatures may lift a little bit in the next few days, but still a bit on the cold side right the way through the bank holiday weekend. Low pressure then dominating the weather over in Europe, so some very unsettled weather there. A lot of cloud, as you can see, and the thicker cloud pushing out from North Africa along the eastern side. Those big black clouds are heavy showers and thunderstorms, and you can see them running up this eastern side, coming up into eastern parts of Europe as well. So the cloud then spilling across into East Anglia, and I think through tonight you'll find this cloud and showery outbreaks coming down into the southeast, perhaps down in towards central southern parts of the country as well. But the showers that we've had this evening, most of them in the north, very gradually dying out. But not a particularly cold night. Lowest temperatures in the north about 2 degrees Celsius or 36 degrees Fahrenheit. And then tomorrow, well, a fairly bright day, I think, in many places. And on the western side, if you were in the sun, out of the wind, it's going to feel quite good. But in East Anglia and the southeast, I think here a lot of clouds, still those showers from time to time. Indeed, there could be some showers, I think, almost anywhere, particularly through the afternoon. But many places probably staying dry. On the other hand, up in this northwestern part of Scotland, the cloud thickening up there to give some rain. And that rain during Monday pushing across Scotland with some showers eventually coming into northern England, down into northern parts of Wales as well. But the bulk of England and Wales dry with some sunshine. Still a bit cold though. That's it from me. Bye-bye for now.
Sunday evening Songs of Praise comes from Bideford in Devon. Then at 7:15, Butterflies.
Yeah, let me help. There.
At 7:45, All Creatures Great and Small deals with the problem duck.
Oh, there, it's in, but I don't hold out much hope.
Oh, Mr. Barnes said to be able to save him.
At 8:35, Noel Coward's Family Album, starring Joan Collins.
Seems callous somehow to pry upon father's secrets so soon.
At 9:20, That's Life's Kevin goes to the circus.
Oh, there you go. Why do my jumpers bring out the worst in people?
Mastermind at 10 o'clock comes from Edinburgh with the first 4 semi-finalists. And at 10:30, Everyman looks at the changing relationship between the church and the mafia in Italy.
Now a few brave individuals, clergy and lay, are speaking out.
And this is Sunday Night on BBC1.
On BBC Two now, Woody Allen stars in the comedy which also marked his debut as a director, in which he plays a young man whose life of crime suddenly achieves a purpose: take the money and run. And robbery's the theme of our film, a little later than scheduled, here on One. It's a fast-moving Australian thriller based on a true story which centres around a security company. The Money Movers.